Is Sam Darnold enough for this Vikings season, or are the Vikings looking to upgrade? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. I appreciate my hashtag everydayers so very much. And if you're new, hello and welcome. Love you very much. This show uploads Monday through Friday, wherever you find your favorite shows. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It is Wednesday, but we're going to treat it a little bit like half of a Wednesday and half of a Friday because we're on a short week. So tomorrow, the plan is crossover Thursday will go up in the morning as normal, and then the game will be played, and we'll upload a Friday podcast that'll be kind of like the Monday podcast usually is, game recap and stuff, and then we'll sort of go like normal from there. But that means we have a lot to do. I would like to discuss more details about what I saw from Sam Darnold in the Lions game, but we also have bold predictions to get to, and there have been some rumors swirling. You've probably heard about it by now, whether you heard about it on KFan or on social media or any number of places, that there is this weird explosion of talk about Matt Stafford and the Vikings being in some sort of negotiation. I will come out right out and say it. I don't buy it. Doesn't pass the smell test to me. I'll talk about why I don't buy it and why it feels like a little impossible. And then we'll go into what Sam Darnold did in that Lions game and why I especially don't think that it's appropriate after that game. And then we'll go into your bold predictions for Thursday night against the Rams, and we'll kind of be in Rams mode from there. But first off, the rumor as it stands, I believe the first person to really put their name on it was a guy named Jack, I think Settleman, not somebody that I'm familiar with, and doesn't seem to be somebody that people usually look to break news. Doesn't seem to be his main move. There was also, I guess, people were a little primed to hear about these kinds of things because Darren Wolfson on the Scoops pod talked about the Vikings over at Score North basically being really willing to do some kind of splash play, throw their first rounder into the mix, maybe even 2 first rounders for something really crazy, and kind of said that they're being aggressive maybe at the deadline. He threw out some names, but he was very clear to be like, don't take these names too seriously. I'm just kind of throwing out some names that are possibilities. And with Darren Wolfson in particular, he is very willing to throw out some stuff that's 1% of the way done and can still fail in a million ways, but here's something to chew on. So you kind of, when he says don't take it seriously, you really have to take it at its face value. Don't take that part seriously. So I won't even repeat the names, but this idea, okay, the real report is the Vikings are seeking an aggressive deal. All right, that's something we can kind of take and say that's what they're trying to get one done. Whether one gets done or not is up to a whole bunch of things that might not even be in their control, but they're working on one. All right, great. The Matt Stafford thing was also picked up by Mike Florio, which if you listen to the Locked On Vikings during the kind of peak Justin Jefferson contract stuff, whenever that would come up, kind of my opinion of that. And I think in general, with somebody who is going to claim insider knowledge and, sourced information, if they're going to say, I know what's going on, I know what news is going to happen, and I'm going to tell you before it breaks, and you just have to trust that I've talked to the right people. If they're going to ask you for that kind of trust and credibility, I don't think it's unreasonable to say, okay, but you have to earn that trust from me. And I have not yet seen this report about Stafford come from somebody who has earned my trust. A lot of people on the local beat that do this for a living, that have reputations, experience in journalism, and journalistic reputations that they care about, have my trust and have earned that, right? When Ben Gessling says that there's trade steam, I'm going to believe that. When Florio says it, a boy has cried wolf a couple too many times for me. So that's part of it, is that just the source of that information has not come from a trustworthy place to me. So that doesn't work. But it also just doesn't make a lot of sense. We have Sam Darnold is like 9th in MVP odds on FanDuel right now. Like, he is not having a bad year. And statistically, he's outproduced Matt Stafford in just about any category you want to look at. Now, you could argue that a lot of that isn't Matt Stafford's fault. They've had O-line health issues. They've had all kinds of issues over there in LA. But like, a guy who's on a bad offense, but it isn't his fault, is still really a tough sell for a guy who's on a good offense, especially when the guy on the bad offense costs you a lot. Probably a first-round pick, probably and definitely a lot of money. And the money is the other thing here. If the Vikings were to swing some kind of trade for Matt Stafford, I would imagine Sam Darnold goes the other way. The logic of this would be also about like the Rams wanting Darnold and kind of then signing him to some kind of extension and essentially making that happen. That would clear less than $4 million off of the Vikings salary cap, and it would bring $23.5 million more. So you're essentially adding $20 million to the Vikings salary cap. They have $10 million in room right now. So this trade isn't even legal until they do some restructuring and mess with some contracts. There are many ways that they could do that. All of those ways are painful. They are all adding void years to stuff, mortgaging future cap, mortgaging future flexibility. They are all costly. So, and that's really the practical cost of cap space is flexibility when you need to do those restructures and stuff. It's fine to have to make that room if you have to, if you have overpromised or whatever. And, the cap situations the Vikings have got in, they've gotten themselves out of pretty easily. I mean, even the Saints are like still extending players, but that would be a really awkward time to do it, because in mid-season is when you have the least space and the least flexibility. So to use future flexibility, to gain flexibility now, to go send a first-round pick to the Rams for a quarterback who might not even be better, is definitely older, and by the way, has 2 years left on a contract, and you've got a rookie waiting in the wings. So are we going to like Jordan Love this guy with JJ McCarthy? I don't think the Vikings want to do that. That is not the sense that I get from them. So there's all these little deadbolts on this that make it feel like it's not an idea. I mean, is it a good idea? Is honestly a totally separate conversation. And I'm really, I struggle with like calling that a good idea. I think you could probably argue to me that Matt Stafford is just like blow for blow a better quarterback than Sam Darnold is but you'd have to base it on priors, not this year. And you'd have to really do a good job of convincing me that the problems in LA aren't his fault and any offensive problems in Minnesota are his fault. And I don't think that any offensive, for one, the offense is humming, but if there are any offensive problems, they definitely aren't always Sam Darnold's fault. So you'd have to like have a pretty hard double standard to really make this all work and not just be going on name value and priors. Priors matter, but I don't think that by the time we're at the trade deadline, they outweigh how someone is playing right now. Plus the inconvenience of both teams basically now having a starting quarterback that needs to, pop in, hit the ground running right away. Nobody would, Stafford wouldn't have a camp with the Vikings. Like there's all these other practical issues with it. Don't worry about it. The actual game they're about to play, it wouldn't happen like today. It would happen after that game, of course. But it would be this incredibly awkward and difficult thing to do that is costly. Really lots of different reasons that it's risking getting worse in the middle of a season where the Vikings expect to contend now at 5-1, right? Like they see themselves as having a good as chance as anybody. So you're risking blowing that up, spending a lot to do so, bending over backwards to make it work. And the entire reporting around this has come from only the sketchiest of sources. I don't buy it. Does not pass the smell test. That milk is going down the drain. Now, in terms of what Darren Wolfson could be talking about with his report that they're working on big things, could be a number of things, could be a bunch of aggressive phone calls. They could all be 1% done and maybe not even get off the ground, but they're, I don't know, asking questions about stuff. Could be any. I have no idea. Could be anything. I'll wait and see. But part of my skepticism here too was going back into the Lions tape to make a Patreon video, which is up at patreon.com/LukeBrownNFL. Go check it out, about Sam Darnold. thinking I was going to be super disappointed and see all these big problems, and coming away going like, actually, that dude kind of hooped. I came away way happier than I thought I would with Sam Darnold from the tape. And like I think I said on Monday, I'm like, I think the tape will be unkind. Couldn't have been more wrong. So I want to sort of give you that update, and then we'll get into the bold predictions. And of course, the Rabbits have to pick this game. So all that coming up. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Gametime, which is the best place to find last-minute tickets to any event. That is how I got my tickets to this upcoming Vikings-Rams game. I will be there, and if you're there early enough, you can go check my Twitter account. You can come hang out, and if you need some last-minute tickets to figure out how to get there, if you live in the Los Angeles area, go to Gametime. Gametime's whole thing is finding you the best deals by figuring out what tickets are on the market really cheap right at the last minute. And Gametime Picks will actually curate a bunch of options to you and give you a list of all the stuff going on in your area, all at a great deal. So you're definitely going to get a good value, and you just have to pick something that looks like it can be a fun thing to do on your Saturday night or whenever you're deciding to go out, whether it's a sports game or a concert, comedy show, theater, whatever. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. Today's episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks, the best way to play daily fantasy football. So if you're looking for a little extra fun while you watch Thursday Night Football, Vikings, Rams, why don't you check out PrizePicks? You just pick 2 to 6 of your favorite players, put them in a lineup. They don't have to be all, one of each position like with a classic daily fantasy lineup, and you don't have to fill everything out, just the ones you feel good about, and then you can put them all in a lineup, win up to 100 times your money if you get them all right. I already have a couple of lineups for this game, Vikings. I do it for basically every Vikings games. I've been having a ton of fun with PrizePicks. I've got Justin Jefferson getting more than 83.5 receiving yards, Kyren Williams more than half a touchdown, and a couple of other promo things that you're too late for now, but there's all kinds of promos going on at PrizePicks all the time. So check back early, check back often. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup at PrizePicks. Run your game. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. I want to take a moment now to discuss what I thought I saw from Sam Darnold when I actually sat down and watched the tape, and it was a lot more encouraging than I expected. So when I watched live, and I'm sure a lot of you had the same kind of thought process, you noticed Sam Darnold scrambled a lot. And I thought, because we've seen it before with him, that when you see him hold the ball, bounce around, scramble, have these, really, really long pockets, a lot of times something's breaking open that he's turning down, not seeing, or the timing's not right. Like, you kind of think, oh man, I bet he wanted something. I wonder if it was there. And it had happened so much, and the scrambles had happened so much, that I was worried that we were going to see guys streaking open downfield all over the place and that his vision was escaping him. And I was like, man, kind of feels like that kind of game for him where he's not really seeing it, where the rhythm isn't quite there and everything's a little broken, which was how the Jets game felt. So it was easier to believe that. And it's like, oh no, is he turning into a pumpkin? That's what I named the Patreon video. And as I went through making that one, I was like, man, I like a lot of these plays a lot. Like, a lot of these are really fun. I think I might be wrong here. There are a lot of instances of processing plays, like mental processing plays that mix with the physical aspect of Darnold's game that remind me of the 97-yard touchdown against San Francisco. The big long post route to Addison is one of them for obvious reasons, but also that it has that same characteristic of a safety hesitating just to scotch and Sam Darnold basically saying, oh, I have this. And having that sort of global awareness to know that even though you're not supposed to throw that on the whiteboard, I mean, post versus cover 2 is a thing, but where he had to place it was directly in that safety zone. And if that safety had backpedaled the whole time, I think it was Brian Branch, if he had backpedaled that whole time, then he would have been there. That throw would not have been there. He would have been able to intercept it if Sam Darnold had the stones to throw it. But because he didn't, Darnold is like, oh, that's open now. That thought process is not something you get with every quarterback. that idea of, when a certain, like when Jordan Addison gets a certain level of across the field, when he gets to a certain point that he's now in that half zone, a lot of quarterbacks just come off of that on principle and probably should. But Darnold sees that it's theory versus practice. In theory, he shouldn't be there. In practice, that safety didn't drop hard enough and he is there. I'm throwing it. I'm going to heave this thing downfield. And by the way, absolute dime, total bomba down the field, and it's beautiful in the bucket. Similar opportunities a couple of times with Justin Jefferson. One of them ended up drawing a holding penalty on Jefferson and giving an automatic first down, where he basically tried like a back shoulder fade because the indicators that he saw pre-snap were telling him man coverage, which the Lions did man coverage a lot. That was one of the things I was curious about going in, was, are they going to man up against Justin Jefferson? They did. And I think the Vikings moved the ball really well against that. So I don't think that what they put on tape is encouraging other teams to do the same. Unlike with the Jets, where like, hey, if you've got these, if you've got corners that you think can do it, here's proof positive that it can be done. And there's a weird part of me that kind of hopes other teams see that and believe that their guys can do it, because I don't think that anyone but the Jets can. And I want teams to like wrongly think, oh, we got the dudes at corner. That's neither here nor there. For Darnold, seeing man coverage and seeing, for example, the touchdown that was just this absolute dime to Justin Jefferson's unbelievably good throw right to him. But pre-snap, he is seeing an indication of man coverage and understanding that means that Justin Jefferson is going to have a ton of room to work outside against Amik Robertson, by the way. So you've got a size advantage, and Justin Jefferson and Amik Robertson is a mismatch on a bunch of levels. And he has a leverage advantage because that formation was really tight. So there's a lot of room for Jefferson to work. It's just an impossible spot for Amik Robertson. Like, he's just never going to win that rep. And that basically means that Darnold can go through his drop back, no hitch, and throw that thing. There needs to be no hesitation, and there wasn't any hesitation. And it's there. Timing's perfect. Accuracy is perfect, and it's there. There are a lot of plays that are like that, where you see what he is looking at and you see that he's trusting his pre-snap read a lot and that he's delivering an accurate pass. I honestly think one of the only times he was truly inaccurate was on that 3rd and 4 at the end of the game, which, hard to blame the coach for thinking your quarterback's going to be accurate when he's been throwing dimes all day. And then the 2-point conversion, you could also maybe argue was either inaccurate or Jordan Addison ran the route wrong. I'm not quite sure. Or ran the route like too slow. I'm not sure. Or maybe Sam Darnold rushed it and threw it early, so it was either early or inaccurate. There's a lot of different ways that you could parse that play out, and it's hard for me to tell. So I'll just kind of put that one to the side. But like, I didn't see Darnold missing a whole bunch downfield, and I definitely didn't see on those scrambles. I didn't see like the missed opportunities I thought I was going to see. A lot of those were either just good man coverage, they just got him that time, they had the double on Jefferson, nobody else got open, or for whatever reason, the timing was messed up by pressure, whatever else was going on. So I found myself a lot, and that's very relaxing to me, right? The defensive problems that I've been talking about all week are still definitely there, but on the other side of the field, I feel very confident going away from this Lions game and saying, yeah, they lost, and that loss is more on the defense than the offense to me, but the offense looked good. And coming off of the Jets game, where the offense looked dreadful and the defense bailed them out, don't take my word for it, that's how Justin Jefferson put it, it's encouraging to see that if the defense doesn't have a good day, the offense can do enough to keep them going and keep them in it until the very end. Just came up just a little short on the win. So I'm encouraged by that. And to apply it to the first part of this podcast, where people are talking about them trading him away and getting some other, established name that's going to be more expensive and have all these problems, it's a little ridiculous to me. And so all of this is laying the groundwork for the real take here, which is that the Vikings trading Sam Darnold away right now is ridiculous. It's a stupid idea. It's indefensible. And I can't get behind it. I think the Vikings ride this thing out with Sam Darnold. I think they have to. I think he's earned that. He's earned more than that. And I still think he's playing for someone else's money in the offseason. And I think he's earning someone else's money in the offseason. So go for him. We'll see what happens here against the Rams. Short week is going to be difficult, but on a kind of a gut punch of a loss like it was against the Lions, that sometimes a short week can help you, not dwell on it too much. Like you have no choice but to shake it off and start game planning for the next one because you're going to be in such a hurry. Obviously, the physicality of it is difficult. There's this narrative about the Lions hangover that every team that has played the Lions, whether they win or lose against the Lions, they lose the next week. Because it's the idea that, you play the Lions and they're so physical and you're beat up and you lose the next week. That's probably more coincidence than it is that, because there have been plenty of physical teams in the past that hasn't necessarily been true for. But if there is an effect there, it's going to be exacerbated on a short week. So there's all these equalizers, plus they got to travel and all that stuff. It's not going to be an easy game, even though the Rams have struggled this year. There is no world where this is an easy game. So I asked you for your bold predictions, and boy, you guys had some bangers this week. So that is going to be next, plus the Rabbits picking the game. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. In just a moment, you will see my Rabbits pick this game with the spread as provided by FanDuel. That is Vikings -3. Right now, the much shorter odds play is Rams +3. That means that more people are betting Rams +3 than they are taking Vikings -3. Take that for whatever you will. And the over-under is 48.5. But if you want to bet that or whatever else you want to bet on this game or anywhere else, Vikings division odds, whatever it is, you can find it at FanDuel.com, and all kinds of promos and profit boosts and special parlays and all of that good stuff. You can get it all at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, you bet $5 on any of that stuff, you can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, whether that bet wins or loses. Any $5 bet gets $200 in bonus bets. That is at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. It's bold time, ready to get bold time. Bold time, it's bold time to get bold. That's the new jingle for bold predictions. I'm going to do it exactly the same every week. And other lies. It's time for the bold prediction segment where I take your craziest predictions, read them out, and if you're right, I get punished. I already have one punishment coming down the pipe by season's end. If you get any other ones, I'll add to that, or I'll find a way to do something else. But let's go check in first on the bold predictions from the Lions game. Jonathan said that Jared Goff would have his 4th straight game with 18 completions, but at least as many incompletions than the last 3 combined. I think he only had 2 incompletions all game long. So he's still doing that. Lions offense is absolutely on fire. The Duck said that every single 4th down that is not fair caught will result in a score. That did not happen. Literally on the first one, the fake punt happened, and it turned into a turnover on downs. Luke Brown's Volsburner said that each level of the defense will get a takeaway, and each level of the offense will score. So we had a wide receiver score. We had a running back score. I guess you could call a quarterback score also a wide receiver score, but no O-line score. That was obviously the hardest thing here. And then there were takeaways there's a takeaway for Pace. He gets fumble recovery. And I think that was it, because I don't think there were any interceptions. So fortunately, we came up just short there. Shadow said that the Lions would have 2 touchdowns called back because of ineligible man downfield. That's right. Everybody was doing that because they were coming off that Cowboys game where they did all of the eligible, ineligible stuff with Dan Skipper because they were so heated about it. Cam Ekstorm said that Kirby Joseph would be credited in coverage for all Vikings passing TDs. Have to have 2+ TDs for that to happen. There were 2 TDs, right? No, there were not. No, because they ended up with 29 points. Yeah, so that would be 3 field goals plus 20 points, which was 3 touchdowns with one of the 2-point conversions not going. Sorry, I was too lazy to look it up, so I just talked it out. But Amik Robertson was credited with the 1 passing touchdown anyways, so that won't work. And then Will Sparks said that since the pyramids have opened, the Lions would kick 3 field goals, the Vikings would score 3 touchdowns on 3rd down, and Jared Goff would have 3 turnovers. I don't think any of those happened. Moving on to the Rams game. This god dang duck that just will not leave my mentions says that, confused with recent quote-unquote rumors, both Darnold and Stafford will score points for the other team via a pick 6, pick 2, or safety where they are last to touch the ball. I'll generalize the safety that I just have to say that it's their fault. The safety needs to be their fault. So if you have, some kind of fumble nonsense and then that comes on a handoff and then Darnold tries to get it and it ends up, going out of bounds off him. I'm going to kind of blame that on Aaron Jones. But if it's, a strip sack fumble that gets recovered by a teammate that, ends up getting touchdown and the end gets recovered by a lineman or something, that's on Sam Darnold. So I'm going to say it needs to be Darnold's fault or Stafford's fault for the safety to happen. That's going to be the stipulation on this. Luis Arraez. Oh boy. Arraez. Okay. Luis Arraez supporter says one of the Rams players will get traded to the Vikings less than 24 hours before game time and decides to suit up and play anyways without knowing any plays. So this is funny. Obviously, we've got the Stafford thing. That's not going to happen before the trade deadline. The rumor doesn't even say that it's going to happen before the trade deadline or before the game. But there is also a more credible report coming out of LA from Diana Rossini, who says that they're actually shopping Cooper Kupp. So that would be something, or it could be, some random depth player that you're not even sure about and that he will suit up and play without knowing any plays. Josh Wells says that reflecting on the short week, this ends up being the shortest game of all time, beating the record of 2 hours and 29 minutes set in 1996 by the Chargers or Colts. So what I'm going to do for this one, because I'll never actually look this up, is set an alarm for myself on at 7:44 Pacific time, which would be what that is if it takes 2 hours and 29 minutes, that would be at 7:44, 9:44 for you in Central Time. And I'll just set an alarm to say, is the game over yet? Because otherwise I'll never measure this. So I've got it. I'm on it. Don't worry about it. I love this one, though. Matt Chinander says that the Vikings have travel troubles and the game is postponed to Friday. They will be traveling on Wednesday, so if we do have an issue, we'll find out about that on Wednesday. That one's just hilarious. I know that one's probably too bold to be realistic, and therefore usually I wouldn't pick it, but I thought I was tickled, so I picked it. And then Smart Guy Ryan has my favorite one I've gotten in a while. I love this one, Ryan. He says, in honor of Caesar's betrayal, a bunch of you tried to make a dagger joke. None of you came close to this one. He says, in honor of Caesar's betrayal, the Vikings will get gashed by dagger for over 23 points coming from that play. Now, I believe it was 23 people that stabbed Caesar. Is that the deal? No, it was 23 stabbings, 23 individual stabbings perpetrated by as many as 60 conspirators. Okay. So 23, that essentially means it has to be 4 touchdowns. If it's going to be over 23 and a half, 24 points, it has to be, 4 touchdowns on dagger. What's interesting about this is that dagger isn't really a touchdown play. It might be a decent high red one, but it's not really a red zone play. It's not designed to get a player behind the defense. It's designed to get a 20-yard chunk, but usually you're throwing it underneath safeties that will then come up and tackle. So someone's either going to have to break a tackle or catch and run. You're going to have some crazy Cooper Kupp play. Or it has to be just an application of dagger that nobody's even tried against nobody's really tried to make a touchdown throw against the Vikings for this. It's very much one that you do between the 20s. So it's not a touchdown play at all. So for points to come on dagger, you need busted coverages, you need missed tackles, you need something crazy like that. And you need it to happen 4 times. Incredibly bold, incredibly hilarious, phenomenal dagger pun. I love it so much. Thank you very much for this, Ryan. You made my night. That is going to do it for the bold predictions. We have one more thing to take care of, though. No's over under this week because of the short week. We don't have it. However, the Rabbits still need to pick the game. So play the guitar riff. We're still doing a little bit of this over under. As is tradition on the Locked On Vikings podcast, now we are having the Rabbits pick the game. My pet rabbits will pick the game. And they did so. This time they got some blueberry, and whichever side they pick is the pick that they make. So the thing about this is sometimes they hear me setting this all up and they get very excited for their treat and just come wait for it. And then they're already arranged in a way that will sort of determine which pick they make. But that's part of it, in my opinion. So in this case, ZD went right for the Rams. He was on the right, and Zoe on the left went right for the Vikings. So Zoe, who has chosen the Vikings against the spread every single week, except for the one that I missed because I was out of town, and is therefore 4-1. And ZD, who has picked against the Vikings every week but won, he is now 2-3. ZD once again picks against the Vikings. Zoe picks for the Vikings. Good luck to one of them, and I hope the other one fails miserably. I will see you all tomorrow for Crossover Thursday with Locked On Rams. And then, of course, after the game, we will be recapping whatever happens. Love you. See y'all next time, and as always, Skol.